and get started. Oh, here. All right. Okay, so today we're going to start with a quick overview of what Microsoft 365 Copilot is. We'll talk about some of the best practices, and then I'll show you an example of Copilot use within Microsoft Word. I have a quick demo where we'll look at the prompt gallery, and then depending on how much time we have, I will go through what it takes to create an agent, and then show a quick demo of that. And then I'll let Chris wrap it up if he has any additional notes for you. And then we'll get into a Q&A at the end. All right, so starting with the Copilot overview, I'm sure you're all aware Copilot is everywhere. So it's in a main area, but it's also within a lot of the Microsoft 365 apps. And so today we'll kind of differentiate when you'll use it in different places and how to best use it. So first, let's talk a little bit about prompting. And so the prompting is really your key to get what you want out of Copilot. And so there are some specific things that you'll want to keep in mind. First of all, you're going to want to tell Copilot exactly what it is that you need. And Copilot will use those prompts to understand what you're looking for and to learn from you. And so as you go through, here are some examples. You can transform documents, you can summarize information, and you can also use it for generative AI where it helps you to create content. Also, important to get what you want is to include the right ingredients within your prompt. And so we have the goal, that's the main thing that you're looking for. You can give Copilot some context. You can identify specific sources. Maybe you're sharing some of your OneDrive files or spreadsheet or a meeting, for example, and it will pull from that as it gives you the response. And then also you're going to want to tell Copilot what it is you want as far as the expectations, how it's supposed to lay it out. Do you want it in a table? Are you looking for a summary? That type of thing. So you can continue iterating. It's not like Copilot just has one thing and it's either right or it's wrong. Once you give it all of the detailed information, you'll want to also look at what it is and start iterating on that. And so you can use it to get content ideas, you can get insights from meetings. And so to iterate on something like that, you might get a recap and then you'll ask a specific question to drill in deeper on a topic that was discussed. Maybe you'll use it for gaining insights, so you'll ask it for a summary of a file, and then you'll drill in to ask more specific details about a specific part or section within the file. And then like for solving technical problems, maybe you have a general problem, you're helping it understand what it is that you need. It helps you identify the problem, and then you ask it for step-by-step guidance on how you might resolve the issue. So that's how you might use it in a conversational mode. And so Copilot really does need your prompt to understand what it is that you're looking for. And so you want to be very specific. Think of it as if you have a new assistant, maybe it's somebody coming into the company, what would they need to know to do a good job? That's what you want to keep in mind so that you're giving enough information to Copilot for it to do a good job and to meet your expectations. So I have this quick list here of the top 10 try first prompts. And so these are just some things that are common use cases. And there's the Copilot prompt gallery link at the bottom. This is where you can go to learn more. You can see these prompts, you can save them, and you can try them out or customize them for your specific needs. So I'll just quickly run through here. You can use Copilot to recap a meeting. If you're sitting within Outlook and you have a really long summary thread, maybe you've been out of the office, you come back, you see a lot of back and forth, you can actually use Copilot to summarize all of that conversation. You can use Copilot to draft an email or to summarize a large document. Maybe there's a project going on. Copilot can help you understand what is involved in that project using your work documents. If you're brainstorming, you can use Copilot to get some ideas. It's a really good boost for productivity as far as creative solutions. And one of the techniques that you can use with Copilot for that is for you to ask Copilot to ask you questions to get an understanding of what it is you want if it needs more information, and then to give you some list of results. And so it's going to take whatever directions you give. It'll ask you those questions. It'll take all of the information and then give you a really good list. You can also help it jumpstart your writing within Microsoft Word. You can have it go find things that maybe you're not able to locate, where you kind of remember, but you don't know exactly. And so you can say, I had a conversation with so-and-so on this topic. Can you tell us what was decided? And so it'll go through and find that for you with Teams messages or Outlook emails. You can have it revise content, and you can have it translate a message. So let's get into the best practices of how you can write a solid prompt that's going to give you a good response. So I have a couple of examples here that we'll start with, and things are highlighted in the color coding that kind of matches the goal, the context, the source, and the expectations. So in this first example, the prompt would be, you are an expert Italian chef. I'm a beginner cook. So you're setting that context. I'm trying to make Italian cuisine. So you're kind of setting some source of where it can look. If it's doing some research, can you provide a simple and easy to follow recipe for lasagna? Write it as a step-by-step list. And so one of the very helpful techniques is to kind of set the role of Copilot. And in this case, it's saying you're an expert Italian chef. So it's kind of setting the stage of the type of response you're going to want. The second one here, it's looking to understand exception handling in some Python code. And so again, it sets that you are an experienced, it's supposed to have a D, software developer with expertise in Python. I'm a new software developer working on a Python project. Can you explain how to implement exception handling in Python like I'm 5 years old? And so it can break it down based on the target, and this sets the expectation to really explain it well, like you're explaining it to a 5-year-old. So another example here is to write a summary of a specific meeting and then include all of this information. So you're really telling it exactly what you want, how to format it, what follow-up tasks people had. And so you can see on the right, the layout of what it gives you is pretty comprehensive. So by being very specific, you get that specific response. So another one, draft a one-page template that I can use to take notes for a meeting, include these sections. That would be another thing you could do within Word. And then maybe you have an ongoing project with a specific person and you want to get a summary of all of the team's messages and emails over the last 2 months. So you can specify time periods and you can specify areas within, like in this case, it was Teams and it was email. Okay, so some best practices, make sure you're including details. And so the first thing here, if you just said write a blog post about sustainable practices in agriculture, you'll get a more general blog that basically where it doesn't know for sure, it's just going to use its imagination and put in things that may not be exactly what you were looking for. So instead, you'll want to be specific. You'll want to set that stage. Give it exactly what you want from it. So 1,500 word blog post that focuses on these specific things, include these examples, so you're very specific and you'll get a better response. You can also specify things telling Copilot what to do and what not to do. And so in this case, it's asking for a 7-day itinerary for a family trip to Japan across Tokyo and Kyoto. Make sure to include specific locations you can put in there. And then also you can say, don't include these specific locations. And so for the best, you want to include all of the information as far as the parameters so that it will give you the results that you're looking for. You can also play around with the structure of your prompt. And so the order that you're putting the information in may make a difference on the results that you're getting. So for example, here are 2 different prompts. The first one takes the structure where it provides the goal, the context, and then the example. The second one provides the context, the example, and the goal. And the results you get may be slightly different. And so this is something that you'll want to keep in mind and kind of play around with until you see exactly what works best for your specific use case. And then as far as iterating and regenerating, you can go through, and if you aren't very specific to start out with, you can actually add additional details as you go and keep submitting additional conversation, like you're having this interactive conversation with Copilot. Ideally, you would want to include as much information up front as possible, but in the case here, it shows where it's kind of focusing in on the specific response. So if we go again with a little different change, this shows another way that it tailors the conversation. All right, so some additional things to keep in mind. You should know Copilot's limitations. Obviously, it's using information that it knows from either your company, documents, or the web. It's a really good tool to do research, and it's a really good way to surface those conversations that you may have had, but it doesn't know everything. And so just be realistic in your expectations. You'll also want to make sure that you're verifying the responses that you get. If you have it asked to create something, just make sure that it looks logical. Research anything. If you're publishing a blog, you want to make sure it's accurate. And it doesn't always 100% get everything right. So you'll want to also make sure you always consistently verify. Use quotation marks where it may make sense. So if you're looking for something that's a key phrase, you can put those in quotation marks. And then also, if you're having a conversation with Copilot and you're going to go on to a completely different subject, start a new topic. So you'll start a brand new chat, start fresh, so there's no confusion. And then also, each of those conversations you'll find in your history, and it's easier to identify when that conversation took place and to get back to it. So you can actually go back to a previous conversation and resume on that specific subject. So you get a lot of different conversations kind of going in parallel, and you'll see those through your history. There's also Copilot Prompt Gallery, which I mentioned. This is a way to really see some of the key prompts that are out there that are very helpful to you. You can tailor those and you can save them to your favorites. When you're in your prompt dialog, where you're going to be adding your prompt in Copilot, you'll see those saved prompts available there. And then finally, you can include something called Context IQ. And so when you're working with Copilot in a work mode, you can use either the Add Content button, or you can use a slash, start typing a file name, or the name of a person, a meeting name, or an email that you want to link, and it will come up with the dialogue. So this right here, when you click Add Context or Content, you can actually search for things, for people, files, etc. And it's going to use that information as a source within your prompt. So I just mentioned this a little bit, your Copilot chat history. When you are in Copilot, you'll see this Copilot chats with the little clock. That's going to be your history. When you click on that, you'll see the list of all of those chats, and you can just click on one of those. It'll go right back into the conversation like you never left, and you can resume whatever you were talking about. So also I want to mention the words that you use can have different meanings to Copilot. And so for example, a lot of times people will take a large document and they'll say, summarize this document. There are so many different words that you can use that mean something similar. And so this is the list we have that just kind of somebody pulled this together with all these different ways that Copilot can give you slightly different results based on the words that you use. And so this scrolls down 3 pages, but it can show you maybe you're trying to make something more formal or more informal. Maybe you're trying to make it neutral, so it's unbiased. Maybe you're trying to sensationalize something so you get more clicks. So these are a lot of different ways that you can look at it for different use cases, depending what it is that you're trying to do. So now I want to get into a specific example. We have Copilot available in a lot of different applications. We're going to start and just take a quick look at Word. And just so you understand how Copilot works in Word, and once you understand that, it's very similar as you go into the other applications. Are there any questions before I get into this specific area? Okay, I'll go ahead and continue. All right, so within Word, you can use Copilot to help you create content. And so it can create a template, or it can create some new write-up that you want based on whatever. It could be based on some information that you have in a PowerPoint or other file. And so this is the first option. You can also use it as an editing tool. And so you can highlight content within a Word document and ask it to correct things or modify things. And it's very context aware within the document itself. You can also have it catch up. And so it can summarize your document. It can you can iterate to ask additional detail, and then you can look for calls for actions, etc. And then you can also ask about the document itself. So you can ask open-ended questions. You can ask it to create a table of the content that it's seeing. And I actually have that in one of the screenshots. So I'm going to run through some screenshots that show you how Copilot looks within Microsoft Word and how you can use it. So first of all, you've probably seen Copilot in multiple places within Word. When you open a brand new document, you're going to see Copilot at the top of that document. So you're able to describe exactly what it is you want to write about if you wanted to use Copilot. You don't need to, but it's there in case. You'll also see Copilot as an icon at the top when you're in your home ribbon. And so when you click that, it's going to bring up Copilot, very similar to what you see when you're in the web and you see it here in a right-hand pane. And so I do have some prompt examples here on the right. I'm not going to go through all of these, but when you get the slides, you'll be able to go through and use some of these as examples to try out. So there are also some options here that are different coaches. And so within Word, they put together some of the coaches that might go along with Word documents. There's a writing coach, idea coach, prompt coach, and visual creator. And then you can also go and get agents if you create a custom agent. So now I want to show how you'll see Copilot in line. And so in this case, you're writing your document and you see this Copilot icon on the left-hand side. And so when you click that, you'll see three different options here. You can write a prompt, or you can do an auto rewrite, or you can visualize whatever is in that highlighted area as a table. So when you're writing a prompt, you can write something up to 2,000 characters, and you're telling it exactly how it should be changing the text or what it should be doing with that text. And so it's going to go through and give you one response. You can regenerate. Let me go back there. You can regenerate if you need to. Once it does it, you know, it'll show you some different options. The second option for the auto rewrite, it will by default give you three different options that you can select from. And so you can kind of scroll through them. You'll see this is one of three. And so as you go through, you'll see it's slightly different. And you can replace it. And it will just go and replace it in line, or you can insert it below if you want to be able to choose between and create your own. So one thing to note is if you're using Copilot in line like this, you actually don't see it in your history of conversations because it's just doing it as an inline task. And so keep that in mind. If you liked two of the three and you're not choosing both of them or writing them out, you're going to lose them. So sometimes people like to take copies and put them in OneNote or something like that if you want to go back to it. Did someone have a question? Okay, maybe not. Okay, so the third option here is that you can visualize the content that you have in Word as a table. So in this case, the sentence says, for the training session, we had 47 attendees from Washington, 32 from California, 18 from Oregon, and 15 from Montana. So if I say visualize as a table, it's now recognized that these are states and that we're talking about the number of attendees, and it puts it into a table for us. And so you can play around with this. It can be very helpful. You can also go the other way. If you have a table of data, you can ask it to summarize that table and it will create that summary sentence for you. All right, so I'd like you to follow along for this one. So there are two options here. You're going to go out to the Copilot prompt gallery and you're going to go out to the Microsoft 365 Copilot chat area. So let me switch over to copy some of these links for you. Okay, so Copilot prompt gallery and Copilot Studio. All right, and we'll take just a couple minutes looking around here. So first of all, in the prompt gallery, this is where you can go through. They have some resources that you can play. But down below, this is where you get into specific prompts. And if you're learning more about Copilot, this is a great resource because it does teach you all of those things that I've just quickly gone over. You can go back and see more information. If you go to this section here and click View All Prompts, this is where you'll see a bunch of different prompts that are available for you to try. So you're able to filter them down to specific applications. And you can see as I click different things, how the prompt list changes slightly. So as you go through, you can see exactly what the prompt might be. And then you can either try it out directly within Copilot, or you can save it for later. So if you save it, that will be available. Let me just save this one. Okay, so if I go back over to Copilot now, here's what you'll see within Copilot. You'll see at the top that you can toggle between work mode and web mode. Web mode would be if you're doing general research. Work mode is that you're using company files and content that's within the Microsoft Graph. And so usually if you're doing things with Teams or OneDrive content, you're going to be using work mode. And so now, let me just refresh my screen since I went out and saved something. So now down below, when I say View Prompts, this is where you would see information. This is the same as you see in the prompt gallery, but it's only the prompts themselves, not that additional content for you. But when you look at your prompts, then you see the one that I had bookmarked. So I basically save it so it's easy access at any time. So if I click it, then I get it down here, and then it's able to go through and find additional information based on what I select as far as a file or person. So very helpful there. And then on the right-hand side, this is where you see some different coaches, and we'll get into agents a little bit later. Also, when you view prompts, then you would see the history option as well. If you're adding content, this is where you're going to go to pull up that search and to see the content that you might have available to you. You can also chat with a specific agent that you've created, and I'll get into that a little later as well, or you can just attach a file. All right, so before we go on, were there any specific unanswered questions, or should I continue? Okay, I'll go ahead and continue. All right, so let's get into agents. So agents are something that you can set up based on your business process. And so you can use specific content sources and a specific reason that goes along, like purpose, that goes along with what that agent's going to be managing and the purpose of that agent. And so agents can be very simple, like a retrieval agent that's just getting information for you. It can be associated with tasks, or it can be very complicated and be more autonomous, where it acts upon its own and is learning what you need. So you can tailor your agent to your specific use case. It can reason over a given business process. You can retrieve content to complete the process, and it can act on your behalf. So you're going to be focusing on data, usually relating to the business process, and that will be stored within your OneDrive or SharePoint or somewhere within the company. So there are two different types of core agents that go with Microsoft 365. The first one here is declarative agents, and the second is custom agents. And so we'll go through declarative agents today, but for both of them, the tools that you will need vary from low code to pro code. So there's a lot of capability for customization, but it can also be very easy and straightforward to create an agent on your own. So here are some options. There are links here out to the resources that you would need. There's a Teams toolkit. So if your company is using Teams quite a bit, that might be a good place to go for advanced functionality. Copilot Studio is a full-featured area to create very custom agents. What we're going to actually be looking at today, though, is Copilot Studio Agent Builder. That's just right within that web page, and it allows you to build a very quick and easy agent using some of the templates or on your own. And then finally, there's an option within SharePoint to create an agent, and it's grounded basically on your SharePoint documents and data. So when we look at a declarative agent, you're going to have the purpose, like what the agent is supposed to do. You're going to give it some general guidelines. That includes directions, the tone it should have, and any restrictions. And then you're going to give it skills. And those skills tell it really what it's going to be doing. And so when relevant, you'll give it step-by-step instructions, error handling, feedback, interaction examples, terms, and the follow-up and closing. So let me give you some examples of what would go in each of those areas. So the first one, you're going to identify the purpose of the agent. And this is where you say specifically what their role is going to be and their area of expertise. For guidelines, this is where you're going to cover the communication style or any restrictions that should be provided. Regarding the skills, you'll list the main tasks that the agent should be performing, and you'll include any suggestions, any automation tasks or explanations. And then you'll notice when you go in and you're using one of those built-in agents like the coach, it has some conversation starters. And so you're able to tailor those for your own agent that you're building, so that when you first click on it, it gives you some easy, repetitive, like common use cases. You can also give it step-by-step instructions with a workflow structure. And so these are common tasks that the agent might do. And you can note things like it should be in a sequential sequence. Maybe they must complete every step before continuing, or you can say these steps can be done in any order. So those types of things can be included here. You can also have interaction examples that you include. So for this, maybe you want to note that the learning coach should recognize whether the person's a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, because a beginner will need more basic information and the advanced would have a more complex explanation. And so it gives some examples here so that it understands this is the type of content that we would be returning in these given cases. It's learning by example. Finally, you have error handling and limitations, like how to handle specific situations. The error handling information can be either part of the general directions or within one of the skill descriptions. And so this, for example, if there's a situation, it would say something like, I need more information to assist you further. Could you clarify? And you can also say things like, avoid providing external links. And feedback and iteration, you can instruct the agent to seek feedback and refine any of the suggestions. accordingly. So this one, it says like after providing a suggestion, ask me if it meets my needs or if adjustments are needed. If I provide feedback, adjust your response to offer alternative solutions, continue refining basically until I'm satisfied. So that's information. The feedback can be either in general directions or in your skill description. And then also you want to make sure that you're defining any non-standard terms. If you have company acronyms that the agent would naturally know, you'll want to make sure you are defining those. And so the example down below is the Learning Engagement Units, LEU. So when it talks about that, what does that mean? When it sees it in a document or a message within Teams, now it will understand. And then the follow-up and closing, this is where it will understand how it should be following up on interactions and how it can close out a session. And again, the closing instructions can be part of general directions or a specific skill. So this allows you to really close that conversation on whatever the task is that you were using the agent for. So you can ask if the results meet your needs or if adjustments are needed. And at the end, you can ask how the agent did, use a thumbs up or thumbs down, that type of thing to understand whether it was helpful or not. So when you're creating an agent, you're going to go through and you'll create the instructions and your conversation starter. You'll put everything together, publish it, and remember responsible AI, where you want it to be fair and transparent on what it's doing, where things are coming from. You'll test the agent by going through and asking it some questions or using prompts to basically go through both in your agent and in Copilot itself. So you want to be able to see better results within your agent to show that you've added value. And then if you haven't, if something's not working right, that's where you'll iterate on the instructions and additional information that may be needed to get a solid agent. So you'll just kind of keep going around until everything looks good. And then you have that agent that you're able to use, and it's available in your Copilot webpage. So there are some examples of agents that are templates within Copilot Chat. There's a writing coach, idea coach, prompt coach, career coach, learning coach, and the visual creator. And so for each of these, you're able to start with them and then modify. So it makes it very easy for you to go through and create your first agent quickly, and then you can continue to iterate on that. Or you can look and learn by example. If you want to look at how the writing coach, for example, worked, you can look at all the instructions in the template, and then you can go and create your brand new agent using something similar in a different context. So looking through, here's the prompt coach, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I want to be able to actually go in and look at it. But we do have the template that's the prompt coach, and we have another template that's the learning coach. I also have this slide of some example agents that you might want to create. So maybe your team wants to create an onboarding buddy, maybe a resume reviewer to help you as you're hiring. You could have a contract or legal review. There could be a research assistant that is an agent that goes and helps you research specific information. And then also a policy search would be another example agent. And so looking through, these are going to be available in the slides. The onboarding buddy has in here the purpose and some specific details that go along with it, along with these example questions, which are your starter prompts. And same for contract review. I'm not going to go specifically into this so that we can have a little more time to actually look at it. And then to summarize the agent option, you're going to go through, you'll access your agents within Copilot Chat. You'll define the agent's purpose when you're creating your new agent, add any organization data, define the agent's behavior, and add any additional customizations. Once things are where you want, you'll publish the agent out there, and then you'll share the agent with others if necessary, and then you'll use it. So as you're using the agent, you can use it in here. It has a screenshot, super tiny, but it shows that you're using it in Teams. So the agent is actually associated with your account, whether you're in the web version of Copilot or whether you're in the Teams area of Copilot. You can do an @ sign and mention your specific agent to bring it up into the conversation. So for agents, you want to be very specific, break any tasks down into smaller steps, use clear syntax, and then examples can help it learn. And so you can either do few show prompting where you're giving it some solved examples, or you can do chain of thought where you're asking it to create that step-by-step solution. Where possible, use do and not do not, because sometimes it gets confused. And then add knowledge, which will be your own files or specific area, like a team within Teams or a channel, so that it can take that information and incorporate that. So for example, if you're doing a policy and procedure type of agent, if you have a SharePoint library with all of your policy and procedure documents, that would be some knowledge that you would want to add. All right, so let's go back out to the Copilot chat. If you don't see the panel on the right-hand side, you'll want to click that panel icon. And then you'll see the option here towards the bottom that says create an agent. So let me go back over here. Here's the create an agent option. So when I click that, I'll see some examples. These are the templates that it's bringing up. So it says either I can tell it what type of agent I want to create. It'll try to help me, or I can use one of the templates. Well, let's say I didn't want to use one of these templates. I want to use the learning coach. So I can say something like, can I start with the learning coach? So even though it's not showing it on the screen, all of those templates are available to you. So it's going to go through, it'll find the information, and it should help me proceed. Okay, so if I look here, it says, great, we can start with the learning coach template. Here's a brief overview of the template. So it tells me kind of how the template works, what the template's doing, and then it says, let's proceed with setting up the agent. How about we name the agent learning coach? Okay, so I'm just going to say that learning coach is a great name. Oh, I'm going to call it my learning coach so there's not confusion. Actually, I'm going to call it Diana's learning coach because if I share it with someone else, I'm not sure if I can use an apostrophe, but I'm going to try. Okay. So then it will go and it'll save this new learning coach. And you'll see at the top, Diana's learning coach is one of the agents that I've created, and it auto saves as you go. So now it's going to ask me to refine the instructions. And so there, you can either do it through chat or you can go through this configure tab. So I'm going to do the configure tab instead. And so within here, oh, it hasn't said anything yet. Let's go back and describe. Okay, so I'm going to ask it to just use all of the, maybe I should say configuration. Okay, so it should bring in the general information. And now I see on the right-hand side a bunch of the prompt starters. And so it's pulled everything in. Now if I go to the configure tab, it has the instructions. It has the knowledge. So I could add like my, I don't know, if I had a learning library or something, I could add that. You can link it to other information that you might have within your company or with any of the connectors. And then you can add specific capabilities. These are the starter prompts. So if I wanted to change anything, I could. You can only have 6, so you'll notice it's grayed out. But if I were to take one of them and delete, now I can add an additional starter prompt to the list. And then it's automatically published as I go or saved as I go. So I'm going to say creating my agent. It's going to go out and publish it. And then I'll just show you one last thing before I turn the time over to Chris. Okay, so it has my agent's been created successfully. I can go to the agent and see the information, or I can dismiss it. I'm going to dismiss it for now, and I'm going to just show you up here at the top where you see my agents. I have this learning guide. I have this. If I say view all agents, now I'm going to see all of my agents out here. Here's the brand new one I just did. Diana's learning coach. I'm able to edit it within here. So as I test, if I don't like something, I can go and change it. And then here is where you would actually go and delete it. So if you don't want it anymore, this is where you would delete. So you have to go into the My Agents list first. And sometimes that's a little tricky. Okay, so now I see on the right-hand side, Diana's learning coach is here. I can pin it if I want to. And there are some settings that I can set, like the icon, etc. But these are the starter prompts. And now I'm having a conversation with my learning coach. All right, so let me go back over to PowerPoint. And I do have a slide with some resources, and I'll share these resources also in the chat. This concludes my content. So if you have any questions, let me know. Chris, I'll go ahead and turn the time back over to you.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I would like to open it up. If anybody has any questions, feel free to come off of mute and ask us.
There's a question in the chat.
Would an agent work in my HR portal to ask questions like what are our paid holidays this year? Only if you allow it to catalog that type of data. We can help you get those kinds of agents set up in your environment. But you have to kind of point it to the documentation so that it's got the right information. But that's how that would work.
And the appendix does have some additional information. I did have a slide about privacy and data security, which could be helpful for some of those cases you're talking about. I didn't go over them because of the limited time, but I encourage you, if you're sharing the slides out, go ahead and look through some of these additional areas within the appendix. And it does walk you through how to create agents for 4 different use cases. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So where is Copilot pulling all this data from to answer our questions?
So it pulls information from the Microsoft Graph database. That's the database that sits behind Microsoft 365 and basically catalogs all of like your documents and all of the content that you generate within Microsoft 365. That is a repository that's isolated to just your company and your profile. So, if you have multiple documents, in your OneDrive, those are protected by whatever permissions you have set for those documents in OneDrive. So if you're sharing out documents from your OneDrive, then those documents can be indexed by Copilot as part of the graph data, and whoever has access to those documents, whatever permissions they've got, will get those documents as results from Copilot if you're asking a question.
So does that mean that so say if an organization, say only like 1/3 of its employees are actually utilizing Microsoft, the Microsoft Suite, OneDrive, SharePoint, whatever, that's what is pulling from?
Correct.
So that means like, say like if So that means like the information won't be complete then, right? I mean, unless everybody jumps on board to learn how to use the whole Microsoft suite.
So if any file that is sitting in a SharePoint or a OneDrive is indexed and available to Copilot for you to reference when you're talking to Copilot.
I see. Okay, and another question: what's the difference between an agent and a coach?
Diana, I'll let you handle that one.
Okay. So the coaches are actually, they're like agents. It's the same. So when you look at those specific things, like the prompt coach is based on the prompt coach template, the idea coach, same thing. Those are just exposed as examples. So when you're using them at the top within Copilot, they're the same logic. They just have also made them templates that you can leverage to build on and customize. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So does that mean that we have to build an agent for every task we want it to do?
No. No, and in fact, like when you're putting in the purpose of the agent, you don't even have to build an agent for doing something specific like a business process. You can actually put that into your Copilot prompt. It's the same kind of thing. It just makes it repeatable and it makes it more standardized so you can reuse it more easily. So if you find yourself doing something over and over, that might be a good
That's mine.
example of something you'd want to put into an agent.
I see. So I can use Copilot just like I use ChatGPT and just like start prompting
Yep.
away. But it's
Yes.
like the agents slash coaches are kind of like, okay, I want to create create like some kind of automation for it because I do it like 5 million times a day. And
Yeah.
I can do that kind of a thing.
Right. If you find yourself always adding the same location, in OneDrive, or you're always adding this SharePoint list to the list of the content, then maybe instead of putting the same thing over and over, you'll have that chat actually in history so you can go back to the chat and use it. But if you wanted it to do some additional things for you and it's very repetitive, you're doing that every Monday, getting some staff meeting summary or action items, something like that you do all the time. That would be something, kind of think of it similar to a long time ago when you had something maybe in one of the Office applications where you're creating a macro for things you wanted to do and help you automate it. It's very similar to the concept where you're automating the core steps so that you don't have to do them manually every time.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, we will wrap this up. We really appreciate everyone joining today. If you have any other questions or concerns about Copilot, feel free to get in touch with the Henson Group, info@hensongroup.com, and we'll be happy to help you out. But we do appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you.
So